this morning.
Wow. I was not expecting that. That was quite the introduction this morning, huh? Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Happy Mother's Day again. Happy Mother's Day, Mom, if you're watching online. I am so excited to be speaking with you this morning. What an honor it was to be asked. And I'm just really excited to share a word with you this morning. Like Taryn and Evan said, my name is Jen Chappell. I've been a part of this church for about 5 years, and I'm married to John, our youth and discipleship pastor. So if you're new here or you haven't been going here for very long, my husband often tells embarrassing stories about me up here. So I was going to start off with a roast about him this morning, but I decided against it. And I decided against it because I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find anything to roast him about. He's just so perfect. And no, I'm serious. He's so perfect, and I just love you so much, John. And I especially love when you shave and you leave your beard clippings all over the entire bathroom. I love that he has a phobia of things touching his eyeball, and that he promised me on the day we got married that he would wear contacts, and when I walked down the aisle, there was no contacts. There was glasses. Try touching his eyes. And then, I love that you tell everyone that you're allergic to eggs, when in reality, he's not. There's no allergy. He just doesn't like them and doesn't want them around. But I will not be doing a roast this morning. That would be inappropriate. So this morning I want to start off by telling a story, and it's about one of our youth leaders. So we have youth group here every Wednesday night, and that's when middle schoolers and high schoolers, they get to come and they have their version of church on Wednesday nights. It's awesome. If you don't send your kids, you should. But we have many amazing youth leaders that come and help and make the night happen. So these youth leaders, they are adults, and they give up their time, and they give up their time really, and they come and they help make the night happen. So a lot of them have kids, they have jobs, they have lots of stuff going on, but they sacrifice their time. That's pretty cool, right? So one of our youth leaders, her name is Bethany. You guys know Bethany? Bethany, can you wave? Just stand up and wave real quick. This is Bethany. Yep. So Bethany is one of those people that's just made for what she does. So she runs the snack shack at youth. She runs all the games. She is a director at one of the youth camps in the summer. And she's just all in. She really is. She's all in. So on one particular night at youth group, I was sitting in a row with Bethany. So it was me, and then there was a teenager, and then there was Bethany. And we were all sitting there, and the teenager, she looked a little nervous. She's looking around, and she says, quietly, she says, "I have to ask you guys a question." We're like, okay. Middle schoolers say a lot of things. I didn't know what was going to come out of her mouth, but, she finally worked up the nerve, and she looked at us, and she said, "I really need to know, do I have BO?" That's what she said. And I know what you're thinking, is this girl really up here on Mother's Day talking about BO? Yes, I am, because this is what happened. So most normal adults, right? I was appalled, right? I don't want to know. I don't want to find out. I was like, this is gross. Why would you ask that? Not Bethany. No. What did Bethany do? Without hesitating, she doesn't say anything. She lifts this girl's arm up, and she puts her nose right in her, went off mic there, right in her armpit, and she took a huge whiff. The good news is she didn't have BO. It's very good news, right? But I learned something that night. I learned something about Bethany that I didn't know before. I learned that Bethany was called to youth ministry, right? Because how else would someone have the grace to do that if they were not called to youth ministry? And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about when God calls us to something, how we can handle that, and how we can steward that calling well. I want to talk about how getting called to something is a lot like building something, okay? That's what we're going to talk about today. Like Bethany being a youth leader and building into those kids, we are all called to be a people who build. And on a day like today, Mother's Day, I want to talk about one of the most important things that any of us will ever build. Whether you are a mom or a dad, or whether you're single or a grandparent, a leader at work, every one of us is building something. And here's what I want you to walk out here with today. You're not just living your life, you're building a wall. And what you build today is what's going to hold you and the people you love when life gets hard. So to talk about that, we're going to talk about a guy in the Bible that built an actual wall, okay? We're going to talk about the story of Nehemiah. Anyone familiar with that story? Yeah? Okay. So he was a guy who got a really clear, specific calling from God to rebuild something that was broken. He was called to rebuild the walls of a city. So to give you a little history, Nehemiah lived about 140 years after the city of Jerusalem was broken down. The walls of the city were broke, the gates were burned, and the city was left with no protection. So generations had actually grown up looking at that wall and thinking, this is just how it is. And then God put something on Nehemiah's heart. So we're going to open up to Nehemiah chapter 1, and we're going to read verses 2 through 4. It is going to be on the screen, but if you want to find it, it's in the Old Testament. It's about a third of the way through the Bible. It's a little difficult to find, but it's in there. So Nehemiah chapter 1, starting in verse 2, it says, Hanani, one of my brothers, came to visit me with some other men who had just arrived from Judah. I asked them about the Jews who had returned from captivity and about how the things were going in Jerusalem. They said to me, things are not going well for those who have returned to the province of Judah. They are in great trouble and disgrace. The walls of Jerusalem has been torn down, and the gates have been destroyed by fire. So Nehemiah hears about the city, and the people there are described in a couple different ways. They're in great trouble, they're in disgrace, and they have a wall that's broken down. That's not a good place to be, is it? So watch in Nehemiah 4 how he responds. Sorry, Nehemiah 1, verse 4. This is how he responds. It says, when I heard this, I sat down and wept. In fact, for days I mourned, fasted, and prayed to the God of heaven. My first point this morning is to know your wall. Know your wall. What do I mean by that? Nehemiah recognized that God was calling him to something specific, and he responded to it. He knew his wall. He hears the news, and he doesn't shrug it off. He doesn't say, oh, that's sad. Somebody else will take care of it. That's not really my problem. No, he sat down, and he wept. He was clearly and visibly bothered by it. So that made me notice that sometimes what breaks your heart might be exactly what God is calling you to build. What breaks your heart might be what God is calling you to build. So Nehemiah feels moved and he feels passionate about what he hears, and then he feels like God is calling him to be the one to rebuild the wall. But the interesting thing is Nehemiah is not a builder. He doesn't know how to build things. He was actually a cupbearer, so we all know what that is, right? He's the guy that tries the wine before the king drinks it to make sure it doesn't have poison in it. So he had a really good job, besides the risk of dying every day through poison. But he had a good job. He had access to the king. He was comfortable, right? And then the other thing is the walls had been broken for over 140 years, And other people had lived through that whole time, right? What were the other people doing? Wasn't there a chance for them to rebuild it? It would have been so easy for Nehemiah to look around and say, isn't there someone else? Isn't there someone better? I couldn't possibly be the one who's called to do this. And I just want to be honest with you. I think this is one of the biggest things that keeps us from stepping in to what God is calling us to do. We look around at everyone else and we think there's got to be someone more qualified. I've felt this. I've sat in this amazing church. I look around at leaders and pastors and professors from a college and I think, what could I possibly add here? Isn't there someone better? And I bet some of you have felt the same thing about whatever God is asking you to step into. So one thing I've learned for sure is that comparison will kill your calling. Comparison will kill your calling. Because comparison creates confusion. It makes you overthink. It makes you question yourself. It makes you just sit on the sidelines waiting for somebody else to do what God has called you to do. Let's not be a people who compare. So, moms, since today is Mother's Day, I did want to direct a couple things towards you. But I just want to tell you, God didn't pick you to raise your kids by accident. He didn't make an error when he picked you. He picked specifically you for your specific kids. Don't waste the calling on your life by comparing yourself to other moms. The kids in your house are a wall that you are called to build. And this is for everyone else. So maybe you're not raising kids, but maybe God has put something on your heart. It could be joining a life group, all those life groups we just heard about. Join Ladies' Night Out. That's the life group to be. We're having a pool party, and it's going to be awesome. Anyway, but could be that. Could be joining that life group. It could be telling someone at work about the gospel. It could be mentoring someone younger than you. Whatever it is, it's your wall. So my question to you this morning is, do you know what your wall is? Have you stopped long enough to ask God what's on his heart for you to build? Because Nehemiah didn't just stumble into rebuilding a city. He recognized the call, he sat with it, and then he did something about it. Which brings me to my second point today. Point number 2 is pray first, then move. Pray first, then move. After Nehemiah heard the news and he sat with it, the very first thing he did was he prayed. Before he made plans, before he talked to anyone else, he went to God first. If you read the rest of Nehemiah chapter 1, we're not going to read it because it's very long, but you'll see this long, beautiful prayer, and it basically goes like this. Nehemiah praises God, he confesses his sin, he reminds God of his promises, and at the very end, in verse 11, he asks God for one specific thing. He says, God, give me favor in front of this man, meaning the king. So Nehemiah didn't crowdsource opinions. He didn't put a poll on his Instagram story asking what he should do. He didn't make a pros and cons list. No, he went to God first. He demonstrated prayer before panic, prayer before planning, prayer before anything else. Now, here's something I love about Nehemiah. He shows us 2 different kinds of prayer in the first 2 chapters. So in chapter 1, you get that prayer we just talked about, right? The long, drawn-out prayer. He was giving God time and space. He's spending time with God. I imagine him like running up his stairs to his bedroom and slamming the door shut and just like getting on his knees on his bedside and just praying before God. It was one of those types of prayers. But then in chapter 2, he's actually in the moment. He's standing in front of the king, and the king asks him a question. Listen to what he says in chapter 2, verse 4. It says, the king asked, well, how can I help you? With a prayer to the God in heaven, I replied. Did you catch that? Right there in the conversation, before he answered the king, he shot up a quick prayer. It's a different kind of prayer, right? It's a prayer that you just breathe out when you're in the moment, and you just can't do that moment without God's help. It's a desperate, Jesus, help me right now prayer. Nehemiah was good at both, the long ones at home and then the quick ones in the moment. He was practiced, and that shows. I want to be someone who's good at both too. And I want to encourage you guys too. Let's be people who are praying first and praying always. Here's another thing though. He didn't just pray, he prayed and then he moved. So what I've seen is when God calls you to something, prayer is a necessity, but so is movement. So is action. So is putting one foot in front of the other. Yes, what God calls you to, he's going to bless. He's going to order your steps, but we still have to take the steps, right? God can't order the steps if we're not stepping, can he? No. We can believe God, but we still have to be the ones to decide and to take the steps. And by the way, what Nehemiah did took some really big courage, right? In chapter 2, the king notices that Nehemiah looks sad. And something I found out about that culture is that if you look sad in the king's presence, it's actually punishable by death. Because if you look sad, it's suggested that you are not happy with the king. The king sounds like a baby, but it's okay. That's how it was then. So Nehemiah is actually trying to hide it in the moment, but he's so sad that the king notices. So Nehemiah has a choice. Do I tell the truth? Do I lie? What do I do here? And we all know he tells the truth. He says, there's this city of my ancestors. I want to go rebuild this wall. And because of God's favor and because of the prayers that Nehemiah had already prayed, the king says yes. And he doesn't just say yes. He goes beyond that. He says yes, and he gives him time off from work. Some sources say that it was up to 12 years that he took off of work. Can you imagine going to your boss and saying, hey, Buffalo has a wall that's broken, and I'd like to go rebuild it. I think I need about 12 years. Just 12, not 13, just 12. Yeah, I don't think that would go over very well. The king also gave him resources, like building materials, and then he gave him letters of safe travel, which is like a passport in our day. So he prayed, he planned, he took a risk, and then God provided. I want to remind you, and I want you to leave this room knowing that what God calls you to, he provides for. Now, I want to tell you a story about how John and I have recently experienced this exact thing. Last November, we both felt like the Lord told us to move, okay? Specifically to move from our house in Webster, which I love, to out here to be closer to the church in Lima. And here's the crazy part. I felt like God spoke that to me, and then John felt like God spoke that to him separately, like on our own. We didn't know it happened, and it was 1 day apart. 1 day apart. I'm not lying. It was crazy, really crazy. So we knew. We believed that God said it. We believed it. But here's the part that nobody tells you, right? God speaking it doesn't mean that we wake up the next morning teleported to a new house in Lima, right? No. We had to pray, we had to plan, and we had to take steps to make it happen. So some of the things we had to do, and I'll just tell you really quick, we had to declutter our house. We had to organize it and get it sell ready. Who's had to sell their house? Yeah. What does sell ready mean? A lot of work, clean, never before been that clean in the history of a house. I would vacuum, and then I would yell at my kids if they walked anywhere. So we had to do that. I had to come to terms with the fact that I was going to have to leave my job out there, and it's a job that I really, really liked, where I worked with 3 of my family members on a daily basis. And then leaving that job meant that I had to apply at new jobs. I had to network. I had to put myself out there. I had to interview, which is the worst thing in the world. Do not ask me any questions because I'm over interviews. We had to figure out where we were going to live. We had to figure out what our kids were going to do for school. It was a lot of moving parts and a lot of decisions. But here's what I want you to hear. As we started to move, God started to provide. So, turns out, we never even had to put our house up for sale. We didn't list it. We had an off-market buyer come and offer us more than we were expecting to get. God provided. He came through. Yep. And then me, I was contacted out of nowhere from someone I didn't know on LinkedIn about a job right here in Lima that was exactly what I did, exactly what I'm good at, and what I like to do. And I took that job, and I'm working out here now. Yeah. So God has provided every step of the way. It doesn't mean it's been easy, but here's what's important. He provided as we moved, not before, not while we were still sitting, wondering if we heard right. He provided as we started walking. What God calls you to, He provides for, but you've got to start walking. So is there something that you've been praying about that you haven't actually moved on yet? Is there a plan that you need to start making today? Is there a conversation you need to have? Pray first, then move. So moving on, Nehemiah, he gets the green light from the king, and he travels to Jerusalem. He gets there, and he's ready to build. I imagine him like showing up on his first day of work with a little lunchbox, a little water bottle. Maybe he's holding up a sign that says, "My first day of work, here I am at the wall." No? Okay. But he's like, "Okay, God, you've called me to do this. Let's go. Let's go." And what happens? Almost immediately, opposition shows up. Opposition. So in the same chapter where God shows his favor, the same chapter where the king grants all of his requests and more, that same chapter, people show up that already have a problem with what he's doing. So check out Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 10. It says, "When Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite official heard of my arrival, they were very displeased that someone had come to help the people of Israel." This verse blows my mind. They were displeased that someone had come to help the people of Israel, right? Do you hear the issue with that? Do you hear that? Nehemiah hadn't done anything to them. He wasn't attacking anyone. He wasn't trying to invade their city. He was trying to help. These guys, they're already mad about it. It doesn't make any sense. Sometimes the only thing you have to do to get attacked is the right thing. And it gets worse. In verse 19, they mock him. And then in chapter 4, they organize. They come up with a plan and try to fight him, try to take out his people, kill him, end his work. So now Nehemiah is not just rebuilding a wall anymore. He is rebuilding a wall while people are actively trying to stop him. And here's how he responds. In chapter 4, you get this incredible image. Chapter 4, verses 17 and 18. The laborers carried on their work with one hand supporting their load and one hand holding a weapon. All of the builders had a sword belted at their side. So picture that for a second. Is anyone in construction? Yeah? Can you imagine having to work on whatever you're working on while also having a sword at your side ready to defend yourself in any given moment? They had building tools in one hand and a weapon in the other. They were working and defending. Sometimes you have to fight for what God calls you to build. Nehemiah didn't quit, though. He didn't argue. He didn't get distracted. Later in chapter 6, when Sanballat tries to lure him into a meeting, Nehemiah says one of my favorite lines in the whole book. In chapter 6, verse 3, it says, I am engaged in a great work, so I can't come down. Why should I stop working to come and meet with you? That's the energy right there, huh? I'm doing something important. I don't have time to come down and meet with you. I think I forgot to say my third point, but my third point today is stay focused and fight. We see that with Nehemiah, right? He doesn't have time. He's fighting back. He's in it, right? Stay focused and fight. What does that look like for us? The first thing I thought about was actually Chick-fil-A, probably because I think about Chick-fil-A a lot. But they felt like God told them, right, to run a fast food business, and they were going to remain closed on Sundays. We all know that. We're all going to crave a sandwich now. We can't get it because it's Sunday. But they've had to fight for that decision time and time again over the years. People have mocked them. They've made fun of it. But they've stayed faithful to what God has called them to do. I think about our Saturate speaker last year. Saturate is a youth conference that we have here. And we had, it's awesome. We had a speaker, his name was Keenan Clark. And he has a very large following on Instagram. And he told us in a meeting that he does not check his Instagram private messages, right? He said that his wife checks them, and then a couple trusted people from his team. You see, private messages can be really dangerous, especially when you're in the public eye. Lots of people want your attention. And he didn't have time to sacrifice the calling on his life by risking being in the wrong conversation at the wrong time. So he just cut it out completely. So is there something in your life that you're fighting for today? Maybe some of you are fighting for your marriage. Maybe some of you are fighting against an addiction. Whatever it is, I want to remind you of something. Walls protect what matters. So without walls, there's no defense. There's vulnerability. There's instability. So if you're fighting for something God has called you to build, keep fighting. And if you're tired today, if you feel like you have no fight left, if you're starting to question the calling that God has placed on your life because you're just getting too tired fighting, I want to encourage you, stay in it. Keep building. There's something on the other side of the wall that God is protecting. So the last thing I noticed about how Nehemiah built this wall, and I think it's the most important, and it's actually my fourth and final point today. Point number 4 is that the small things matter. The small things matter. So the wall wasn't built all at once. It wasn't built by one guy. It wasn't built by a special construction crew. If you read in Nehemiah chapter 3, and I'm not going to read all of it because it's very repetitive and it's basically a list of names, but what it says in chapter 3 is that it says, this family rebuilt this section in front of this wall, this family rebuilt this section, this family did this one, and it goes on and on and on. A priest rebuilt a gate. That's what it does. Section by section, family by family, stone by stone, a lot of little things had to happen to rebuild this wall. It took time, and every part mattered. So in the same way, if you're a parent in this room, this is how we build into our children. Check out this verse in Deuteronomy chapter 6. I think it's one of the best blueprints for parenting in the Bible. Deuteronomy chapter 6, starting in verse 6, it says, "And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I'm giving you today. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you're at home, when you're on the road, when you're going to bed, and when you're getting up." Did you catch that? Repeat them again and again. At home, on the road, going to bed, getting up. It's not a one-time conversation. It's not one single dramatic spiritual moment. It's the everyday. It's the small. What we build into our kids is built conversation by conversation, prayer by prayer, and correction by correction. It feels small, but it's structural. Every little part adds up. So moms, I just want to talk to you for a minute. I know what it feels like sometimes, right? The bedtime prayer that nobody seems to listen to, the hard conversation that you have that looks like it just goes in one ear and out the other, and you wonder, is any of this even working? Is any of this even sticking? I want to tell you, it is. You're not just managing your kids. You're not just keeping them alive. You are building a wall around them. And a wall is going to protect them when life tries to break them. And to everyone else in this room, I don't want you to check out here. I know I've been talking to moms a lot, but I believe everyone can be building into someone else, right? A coworker, a friend, a younger sibling. You can choose to build into other people. And you can also make choices for yourself that help build a wall around you too. Every choice you make, every prayer you pray, every quiet act of obedience that nobody sees, that's a wall too. And it's going to hold you when life tries to break you. So I just want to go way back. I want to tell you a story real quick about when I was growing up. And when I was growing up, I was being built into. I just didn't know it at the time. I went to a small Christian school from kindergarten through 8th grade. I remember learning scripture for as far back as I can remember. I remember learning how to pray, having to practice how to pray. I remember learning the books of the Bible by a song in 3rd grade. And to be honest, that's still how I find them today. It's very helpful. If you need me to teach you, let me know. When I was a teenager, if it was a Friday night, the only place you could find me would be at youth church. It's all I wanted to be. If there was a special event at church during the week, I wanted to be there. I know, I'm a weirdo. In high school, a group of us would pray at the lockers every morning in our large public school. So if you were a Christian, any church you went to, if you wanted to start the day with prayer, you would meet at one of the seniors' lockers and you would pray for the day every single morning in high school. I didn't realize it then, but a wall was being built in me very slowly over a long period of time right there. It was just all adding up, right? So I want to fast forward now, and I want to tell you about the worst day of my life. So some of you know this story because John has shared it from stage, but almost 10 years ago, we lost our 3rd child. His name is Cooper, and he was a couple days from his due date. He was healthy, he was big. Everything was fine until it wasn't. So in a moment, I went from listening to his heartbeat at a routine doctor's appointment to him being in distress, to them not being able to find his heartbeat, to then me being rushed to the hospital to see if we could get him out in time. And we couldn't. So I had to go through labor and delivery, and we said hello and goodbye to our perfect 9-pound boy, full head of Justin Bieber hair, just like his dad. And there's something I didn't know before that day, okay? When you lose a baby like that, there's decisions that you have to make quickly, right? Decisions that you can't fathom, that you didn't know you were going to have to make in the moment. So we decided to have a funeral, okay? We decided to have a funeral, and we had to go pick out a casket. That day, that's the day that I'm talking about. The day we picked out a casket for our son. That was the worst day of my life. But I want to tell you something else about that day. because we were having a funeral and because everyone we knew was waiting for me to have the baby, everyone was asking me, is he here yet? Is he here? I had to get the word out, right? I had to tell people what happened quickly. So I had to tell them about the funeral. So I sat down and I put together a little message and I told them what happened and I told them when and where the service would be. And at the end of the message, I don't even remember writing this. I don't remember why I added it. But at the end of the message, I wrote these words. As hard as this is, we still believe God is faithful, and he will be the only thing to get us through. That sentence on that day, picking out a casket for my son, that didn't come out of nowhere. No, it came from a wall that had been built in me stone by stone since I was a little girl, by parents who took me to church when I didn't want to go, by youth leaders who taught me how to pray, by Sunday school teachers who made me memorize scripture, by a friend group in high school who wasn't ashamed to pray at the lockers. All of those small things, all of those years, all of those prayers I didn't even know were sinking in, they became a wall. And on the worst day of my life, that wall held. And I was able to say that God is faithful. So moms, I want you to hear me for a second. Don't think for 1 second that the small things that you are doing every single day don't matter. You don't know what your kids are going to walk through. You don't know when they're going to need a wall. Protection from the enemy stealing their joy when something bad happens. Protection against deconstructing their faith when they get to college. Protection against maybe peer pressure in high school. Protection against the day when they're an adult and life breaks their heart, like mine. We have to do everything we can to build something strong in them now, while we have them, while they're listening, even when they're not. What's built in you will come out in crisis, and that's what we want to build in our kids. I believe with all my heart, the only reason I was able to say God is faithful in the same day I picked out a casket for my son was because of what was built in me over the years. And this isn't a story to be like, oh, look how spiritual Jen is. Look how awesome Jen is, because I wasn't. I don't even remember writing it. But it's what came out in crisis. And I am so thankful to all those people who invested in me over the years so that on my worst day, my wall held. The small things matter. So maybe you're a parent and you're sitting here thinking, it's too late for me. I haven't done that. My kids are already grown. My kids are already walking away from God. Maybe you're a business owner. Maybe you're just a kid in high school. I want to tell you something. It's never too late to lay brick one. You can start today. You can start right now, this morning. The wall didn't get built overnight in Nehemiah's day, and it won't in yours. But every day you don't start is a day that you don't get back. So start praying. Start having your conversations. Start admitting if you got it wrong. Start over. God is a rebuilder. He's a rebuilder. The walls in Jerusalem had been broken for over 140 years, and people had completely given up. They didn't expect a change. But God put it on one man's heart, and everything changed. It's never too late to start building. So today as I close, I just want to invite you guys all to stand. I'd love to pray with you this morning. God, I thank you this morning. I thank you, God, that you are the ultimate rebuilder. I thank you that no life is too broken. No family is too far gone. No wall has been down too long that you can't put it back up. And Lord, I pray that you would show us the things in our life that you're calling us to build. Show us, God, whatever it is, whether it's the children, like I talked about, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a business, whatever it is, I pray that you would just show us specifically what it is that you have for us to build. If you feel like you don't know what your wall is this morning, if you feel like you're in this room and you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, I'm not building anything, God, I pray that you would show those people, show them what they can build into. I pray that you'd break our hearts for the things that you want us to build. Give us a passion for it. I pray that we will be a people of prayer, just like Nehemiah was. People that run to you first before anything else. People that run to you in the moment before anything else. And I prayed that we'd be able to fight for our calling, God, when things get hard. That we wouldn't give up. We wouldn't compromise. We would keep fighting. And for those of us with children, God, I thank you that you have entrusted us with them. I thank you for their precious little lives and their minds that we get the privilege to speak into, God. I pray that you would give us the patience and the grace every day to keep building into them. When we're sick of it, when we're tired, when we don't want to be asked another question, God, I pray that you would give us the grace to keep building a wall around them. I thank you, God, for everything that you're going to do in and through us, God. In Jesus' name, amen.
Just a moment. I'm going to be inviting the prayer teams up. If you feel in your heart that you just need to respond to anything that you heard this morning, prayer was highlighted a lot. And one of the things I really love about that story of Nehemiah that Jen spoke from is that he didn't do it alone. You know, he felt called, he had a burden, but there was people who were equipped. There were people that joined in that same heart that Nehemiah had, and they helped him. And this morning you have an opportunity to have people stand with you as well. And as our prayer teams come forward, I just want to encourage you, if you feel like you're in that fight, if you feel like you're losing all strength and you're just not really sure if it's worth it, please come forward, and we want to pray with you, and we want to stand with you. If you feel like you need to lay that stone, if you feel like you need to add to that wall, our prayer team would love to help you do that. You know, one of the things I love about this church is that we are a church that doesn't want you to go through it alone. We don't want you to feel like you are building on your own. We don't want you to feel like you have no one fighting beside you. We have pastors and leaders and family members who have that same burden, that same heart to join in that fight along with you. So if anything in you this morning from what Jen has shared, if you are experiencing your worst day, if you are feeling defeated, if you are feeling like what's in front of you is breaking, what's in front of you is cracked, what's in front of you is falling apart, we want to stand with you and believe with you and fight with you and pray with you and believe that God is building something that's going to last far beyond our time here on earth. So please, I just want to invite you to come forward. We'd love to pray for you. And just a reminder for our moms and our grandmas, we have our mimosas and our fry cakes out for you and our photo wall. Don't feel like you have to rush out. If you have plans, please go enjoy them. But we also would love to spend time together, celebrate with you, and we love you. I just want to bless you as you go. I hope you feel blessed. I hope you feel encouraged. I hope you feel the presence of God on you as you go forward. We love you. Have a great Sunday, and we hope we see you again next week. Bye-bye. God bless.